Welcome to Enlightened Evolution,
I'm Cay.
and I'm Christina.
We're here to discuss the ebb and flow of our soul's healing and transformation through self-reflection, choosing intentionally, honoring thyself, and following your inner guide.
Thank you for joining this safe space with us. Hello, and welcome to Enlightened Evolution. We are so glad that you are joining us. We hope your week is going off to a great start. Today, we are talking about signs it's time to leave a relationship, whether that be just that it's done, or maybe it's signs that you're in an abusive relationship and it's time to leave. We're kind of going to talk about all of those things. How are you today, Kay?
I'm doing wonderful. Woke up early, got my grocery shopping done already, and
Nice.
just ready. It's Monday morning for us today, so I'm already off to a good start this week. What about you?
That's awesome. I need to go grocery shopping today. I'm feeling great. If you're watching our video, I'm a brunette today. Trying out a little wig action.
Love it.
It's fun to switch it up every once in a while.
Yes, it is. I love it. You're adorable.
So I thought I would start us off with I was looking up some information, and I think it's so funny. I think both of us have done this before when when you're in a relationship and you already are kind of thinking like, is this over? Am I done? You start searching for content that's like confirming or denying what you think. So there's so many resources out there. There's, TikTok videos, there's articles online, but this is one from the Gottman Institute, and it's called the Four Horsemen. And it's the four things that, if they're present in a relationship, they're the greatest. Now, they did a predictor of divorce, but it could be just ending a relationship as well. So the first one is criticism, if you are constantly criticizing each other. The second one is defensiveness. So if you constantly feel like you're on the defense in your relationship, that could be emotionally, psychologically, actually physically. Contempt. So eye rolling, disgust, dismissal, ridiculing. If you're doing those things to your partner, it's probably not a healthy relationship anymore, or vice versa. And then the last one is stonewalling or the silent treatment. And we know that can be present in narcissism, but if you're just completely ignoring each other, ignoring the issue, those are all signs that it's headed south. Have
I love that.
you
I think
experienced any or all of those?
Yeah. Yeah, I have. And it goes from a range, right? So some of those things can lead to emotional verbal abuse, but not always. I don't like when it leads to the name calling and everything. I think that's on a higher level that it is really time to go, but when you can't reason with each other. I think if you're fighting more than once a week, I even feel like that's quite a bit. If you have a disagreement with someone more than once a week and it excels to this constant conflict with somebody, and then when you're not with them, like you said, having that contempt, that resentment, even like when you first get with someone, like those little quirks they have that you once thought were cute and now they just irritate you constantly. I think that's a big sign. And especially when you start to bring these things up to them or they're bringing them up to you. And there's some things that I've been stuck in my ways and I you can't change my mind. And then I couldn't change their mind. And so if you can't have that love and respect for each other with different perspectives and still accept that person, I think that's a good sign it's probably time to leave. What about you?
I that's what I have written down is like it's so hard to determine, especially when there isn't like a immediate threat to your life. So,
Mhm.
yes, if there's an immediate threat to your life, it's a little bit easier and it's still hard in those situations to recognize I need to get out of here. I'm not safe. But I think as soon as you start feeling unsure, express that to your partner. I know everyone always says the key to a relationship is communication, but nobody really dives into what that really means. So Is your partner hearing what your concerns are? Are they giving a genuine interest in wanting to make that better and wanting to make that resolve in your relationship? And then on top of that, are their actions meeting their words? So if they apologize for something they did and then there's no change, that's manipulation. They're just appeasing you in that moment, but they have no actual desire to change their behavior. So I think you got to at least give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they didn't realize they were doing something. Have that conversation first and then see how they act in the future. And do they actually try to make an effort to do better?
Yeah, I think communication is huge. The comprehension of that communication for sure. And if you don't understand what your partner is saying, reiterate what they're saying in different words in the way that you understand it so they can confirm that you're actually comprehending what they're trying to express to you. I
Yeah,
think that
definitely.
I think that when you're with somebody for a longer period of time and you start to evolve, you start to grow, you start to have different interests, your lifestyles are no longer aligning. I think that that's difficult for me when I'm in a relationship if, I wanna start working out again and start eating healthy and I don't have that support from my partner. I think similar lifestyles are very important in a relationship, and
Yeah,
maybe
definitely.
if you can't share that with your partner anymore, if you're doing all these things alone and you wanna share that with somebody, if they don't wanna jump on board with you, I think that's something you need to kinda reassess, especially if you've talked to them about it and they don't have interest in it, and it's fine if they don't have interest in it.
But do they support you in wanting to do it and, give you the time to go and do it? Maybe you want to go to the gym. Hey, can you be with the kids while I go to the gym so I can have some time to myself since you don't want to join me and at least give you that support?
Yeah, absolutely. I
I had
think
someone tell me recently that, and I'd never heard someone express this before, and I'm sure it's true in so many relationships. They were telling me why they broke up with their partner, and they were saying they had been with their partner a long time, and they said, I found myself fantasizing about other people and wanting to be with other people, and that was an indicator in me that this relationship was not going to be able to continue. And I thought,
abs
that's really mature of you.
yeah, absolutely, gosh, that'd be huge. I and that's what I was about to say right before you said that, was when the physical intimacy is gone, you don't have that same affinity and attraction for your partner that you once did, and I think that sexual desire, especially with the females and our natural cycle of our bodies, it it goes through different waves and phases throughout the month, so your libido is gonna be higher at sometimes than others. But when you have this, I would say, a chronic issue of no longer initiating physical intimacy either way from either partner, and then you aren't even talking about it, I think that's a big indicator that it's probably time to walk away. That's a big one for me. Physical I mean,
Mhm.
for probably for anybody, but maybe I don't know,
And I
maybe
think a
for
lot of times,
I was just gonna
yeah,
say for
for
men, a lot of
women,
times for men more than women,
mhm,
the
and I think
females.
for women, it comes more down to, like, I think our resentment is what gets in the way of our physical intimacy. So when we start to build resentment towards our partner, we start to become less and less attracted to that person and don't want to engage in sexual activity with them. I know in my last marriage, that was definitely the case. If I'm parenting you like you are my child, I'm no longer physically attracted to you because now we have a very different relationship. And I think that's one of the biggest things going into my current relationship. I knew how detrimental resentment can be in a relationship. And so I've kind of kept this constant eye on, are either of us developing any type of resentment? Are we letting something linger instead of talking through and working through it? So that has been one of my biggest focuses on having a successful relationship, is recognizing when we're starting to develop that and squashing it right away.
Absolutely. mentioning that made me think about something. There's a lot of women, quite a few of my friends, coworkers, and, we talk about our relationships, and they mention that they do have resentment from their partners quite a bit because they're not taking initiative to do the basic household things like helping with the kids or cooking or cleaning, and then they start using sex as a reward. They come home and their husbands want sex after they get out of work, and they're like, "You didn't do the dishes today. Why do you think you deserve that?" And I don't think using sex as a reward is a good way to go at all, but I definitely relate to the fact that, hey, I don't feel physical desire towards you when I'm not getting my needs met as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think too, this is something that took me a really long time to learn. I manifest my feelings in my body because I have a hard time feeling my feelings. So I'll just
Mhm.
suppress them and then my body will show it in other ways. So in previous relationships, I was on gastric reflux medication for years because I had such high anxiety in my relationship that I had such nausea. I would wake up with it. Also, I remember times when I would be driving home from work and I would pull off into a park or a parking lot and just cry because I didn't want to go home to that person.
Mm.
If you're doing that, it's time to leave. And that, I mean, that was only a few years into the relationship, and I stayed much, much longer than that, and I really shouldn't have. But if you're having physical manifestations in your body, and those can be hard to pick up on because you're like, oh, well, maybe it's related to this or this, really do, some self survey and inner work and think, what is stressing my body right now?
Yeah, I hold my tension in my jaw and my shoulders, and I know when I start to get neck and, like, shoulder pain, I know that my stress is coming on, especially when I'm in relationships. I also lose my appetite, and I lose weight, and I start to lose my hair. And
Mm.
when those things start manifesting, I know that it's time to go. It's happened more than once. So pay attention to your body.
Yes.
I think that
I saw
when
someone, oh, sorry.
No, 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 go ahead.
Oh, I just was going to say, I saw someone post, if you're really, it can be hard when you're in this long-term relationship, you invested so much into it and you're like, we share finances. How am I going to, especially in this economy, how am I going to go and live on my own and get my own place?
Mhm.
Rent and everything is so high right now. And I totally get that. Sometimes it might be helpful to even just keep a journal, keep a calendar, and mark the amount of days that are good in the relationship and the amount that are bad, and really have that visual of, I spent 20 days this month being miserable. Is that worth my life? Or can I find a way to make it work without this person?
Right. I think more the subtle things that people can pay attention to when their relationships start declining is you're no longer going on these dates anymore. Your partner or even you, these just like simple little gestures that, oh, they love this iced coffee, and I used to bring it home to them at least once or twice a week. Just show up with it, and you stop doing those things for your partner. Why did you stop doing those things, and why did they stop doing those things? Is because they nabbed you and they no longer have to work so hard to make you happy, or is it something else that they're just not that interested anymore? Like that, like the love is kind of fading.
I know we've kind of mentioned we tend to put our best foot forward in the beginning of relationships, and
Mhm.
we do and say a lot of things that might not hold up. I remember going into my current relationship, I was very cognizant of that. And I kind of laid it on the line because he was doing a lot of really sweet things for me. And I was like, look, if any of what you're doing right now you don't think is sustainable and you can't do this for the next however many years, I
Right,
don't want it right now because I don't want
right.
to get accustomed to something that isn't going to continue.
Yeah, because then you start to have these anxieties about Why did they stop doing these things? Are they seeing somebody else? Are they thinking about somebody else? Do they not love me as much? All those are normal feelings to have when your partner isn't consistent anymore about those things that used to just show you love and affection in other ways. I I think a big indicator too, when you're used to confide in your partner about everything, even the little things at work that bothered you, or stuff that goes on with your friends, your family that you're worried about, things like that. When you stop confiding in them, whether it's because you don't feel supported or you're just really not interested in them anymore, or you're not getting the feedback that you desire, I think that's something that you need to kind of dive into and wonder why you're no longer being vulnerable and sharing certain things with them.
Yeah, it's likely that they no longer feel like a safe space for you to confide
Mhm.
in.
Yeah. Another thing, I think, this would be for more of long-term relationships, when they stop consulting with you about making big purchases or big decisions, changing careers, or just quitting a job altogether, and what once took them 15 minutes to get to work, now they chose another job that's an hour and a half drive time there and back, and you have kids that you both have to manage together. I think that would bother me if my partner did that without having a conversation with me about it first.
Yeah, definitely. I know in my last marriage, I dove into my work and I picked up all the overtime I could. I picked up extra jobs, extra counsels because I didn't want to be home. So that should have been a red flag to
Mhm.
myself and my partner of this person does not want to be here. Of course, he didn't care. He was happy to be unbothered and play his video games and not have me there nagging him.
Mhm.
But in myself, I was stressing myself up to the max and I should have recognized why don't I want to be home at all?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not married yet and you've already been with your partner for a year or 2 or 3, and it's very important for you to be married, some people it's not important to them, but if it's important to you and you knew that going into the relationship how important it was and you've expressed that to them, if they still haven't talked to you about it, proposed to you, hinted towards it, something like that, I would have that conversation like, "Hey, we're doing so good in so many areas of this relationship. Are we going to progress in any way? Do you still see me as that person that you would like to share a life with and, combine our households, get married, or is it something that you're not really wanting to do with me?" Because if you are wanting to do that and they're not ready, how much longer are you willing to wait until they are ready?
Yeah. And that's something you got to kind of set a timeline and it's not it should never be an ultimatum, but you need to know what's right for you. So if you don't want to continue to waste your time in something you that obviously isn't going anywhere and they're not ready to commit and I mean give them a reasonable time frame, but if it's going on and you know that you want to be married or you want to have children, you want to progress to something else, life is only so long.
That's right. Yeah, I certainly agree with not giving them an ultimatum because then you force somebody into something that they ultimately don't want to do, and that may build resentment.
Certainly. Do you know signs for yourself when you're, like, starting to build resentment in a relationship?
Oh, yeah. I think when things are canceled multiple times, I feel like my time isn't respected. I have kids, so I have to set up childcare or take work off. I think when plans are constantly changing after we've made plans, that builds resentment for me. I think that when my partner is jealous beyond, because we're all a little jealous, I think, but when my partner is starts to get jealous and deems me untrustworthy for reasons I know I'm not being untrustworthy. I'm a very faithful person. That is a huge turn off for me, and I start to build resentment, and that goes into a lot of those. things that happen in those relationships always led to some type of emotional and mental abuse for sure. But I start to get resentments for that. I do not like when, and how do you feel about this? Because in my past relationships, it's always been a thing. We always have each other's passcodes to the phone. It's like this, we go tit for tat, going through each other's phones, very immature, questioning each other about things. And it's that like, I get very resentful when that happens. I don't like that. I feel like some things, your privacy is invaded. So when my
Yeah, and
privacy
it
is
breaks down
invaded,
trust.
mhm. Yeah, and,
Definitely.
yeah, I think those are the big things probably, or, of course, words not meeting actions, whatever that is. Or I've had guys portray that they're financially stable in one way, and then when you progress into the relationship, you realize that they're not. And so and everybody's different with their financial status and what they're comfortable with, but I'm not going to be paying for my partner the majority of the time. And when find myself planning all the dates or paying for things a lot more than they are, that's a turn off for me, and the relationship's not going to continue.
That is a really good point, and I feel like I that is a huge turnoff for me, and I have done it so many times in relationships because I am a doer. Like, if we say we're gonna do something, I'm
Right.
gonna set it up. So, say we're going on vacation. Okay, well, let's book it. Let's do this. Let's do that. And then I find myself jumping in and doing all those things, and I think there's a part where I have a little bit to blame myself for not giving that other person the chance to step in and do those things. And this is just from me and what I've noticed in my actions. But there is like I'm very impatient. So there's like this
Same.
fine line of like, do I give them the time and space to take initiative or do I just jump on something? And
Right, and
then
that
I can't fairly be resentful to them if I didn't give them the opportunity to do it.
right, and some things people don't know how to do, so, "Hey, can you do you I'm gonna do this part of the booking, can you do that part?" And they're like, "Well, I've never done that before." "Okay, well, let me show you." That's fine, but, if I want something, I'm gonna treat myself, so, I don't know. Like,
Absolutely.
"Hey, I want this." "Oh,
But
I'll get that." "Oh, I'll get that for you, babe." "Oh, yeah?" Well,
I
you
was gonna
know
order it right now, so
Yeah, right, right,
when
I
are you ordering?
just added it to my cart, what are we doing?
Yeah, I'm just like that.
Yeah, I am too. I don't deprive myself of a thing.
Mm-mm. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but here we are. It
Probably you
makes me
could probably
happy.
judge it both ways.
Sure.
I think
Certainly.
when things excel to more of an abusive standpoint, I think when you start to notice changing yourself to conform to that person's insecurities, that's a big indicator that it's time to go. One relationship I was in, they didn't like the fact that in the summertime, I don't wear a bra a lot of the times. They didn't like that. Okay, well, are you gonna change for that person, or are you going to continue to be comfortable? And then changing your friends. How often do you hang out with them? We talked a lot about this in previous episodes, but I think that's a big indicator is when you just start abandoning yourself to make that person feel more secure. I know we've
Yeah.
both done it.
And I think sometimes, especially when we get into the abusive cycle of the abuse, then the apology, then the showering of gifts and things, and we get into that, it can be hard to recognize when you're in an abusive relationship. I think one of the first things we recognize is our peace is being disturbed. So we know something's wrong. We just might not know exactly what it is. And if you find that you are on edge more, you are just generally not happy and not the person you used to be, it's definitely time to dig a bit deeper and see what's contributing to that.
Right, especially if you're not a person with a lot of anxiety to begin with, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're walking on eggshells and constantly wondering and thinking and analyzing every move you're making, every person you're talking to, every post on social media, wondering how this person's going to respond to it and if they're going to be angry at you and you have a fear of upsetting them. That's you're probably being emotionally and mentally abused and manipulated. I think when people come home, let's say from work, and they've had a really high stressful day and they pour all of the stress onto you and take it out on you, and they're very irritated for you with you, angry, blame you for their inability to regulate their emotions. That's abusive. Disregarding how you feel. I've said this before. I think my biggest pet peeve in abusive relationships is expressing how you feel and they divert to something completely different. Disregard you over and over and over again. I don't know how anybody could continue being in a relationship like that.
No.
Has that happened to you a lot?
Yes, and I think I have done that in previous relationships.
Yeah, I've done it
I
too.
almost
Mhm.
Yeah, and it might have just been, it becomes that back and forth dynamic in the
Mhm.
relationship, and at that time, I didn't recognize it. I definitely have more awareness of that now, and it's not something I do currently. We talk about the issue at hand, and that's what the issue is. But yeah,
Right.
I've experienced
Staying
that
on
and I've done it.
subject. Sorry.
I do want to just put a PSA out there, especially if you've been in a physically abusive relationship and then you're in a different relationship that still does not feel right, but you're like, "Oh, well, they're not hitting me." Value your mental health as much as you value your physical health. In society in general, we value physical health more than mental health. Mental health is physical health.
Absolutely.
So, it might not be immediate today, and it might be there could be where you're in a situation where it makes you to be suicidal. I've definitely been in that situation before, and that does end up becoming physical health. Also, we've talked about how your emotions and what you don't process stores in your body, and it's so real. Like, it can manifest as autoimmune diseases, it can manifest as a heart attack, all kinds of things. So I think we always kind of push our mental health to the side, and we're like, okay, am I physically able to carry on? You're not going to be able to physically carry on much longer if you continue to push your mental health to the side.
No, you won't. I that last relationship I was in, I wasn't physically abused. Oh my gosh, but I have not had any heart palpitations since that relationship has ended. My memory has increased and gotten so much better. I've gained 15 pounds. And I wasn't suicidal during the relationship, but I just remember this rainy cloud every day, just would be okay with dying. So if you feel like you are not suicidal, but you would be okay if you died, uh, definitely try to get away and leave that person as safely and as quickly as you can.
Definitely.
There's this book I read. It's called Whole Again by Jackson MacKenzie. It's about healing and discovering your true self after toxic relationships and emotional abuse. That book helped me quite a bit. I'm sure you can get it on Audible. I just ordered it on Amazon. It's not that expensive. Have you ever heard of him or read that book? I remember
No,
actually I read
I'm
that book.
interested.
I should probably read it again. I read that book after my last abusive relationship that was physical, and I thought that, the next one I got in wasn't physical, so it was better, like you said. So, we love all of you, and we're
Yes,
sorry if you've ever experienced these things. There is hope. You can get out. You can choose a different path for your life. Thank you for sharing this
absolutely.
moment with us today.
Yes, thank you all for joining us, and we hope that you find strength to prioritize your peace and your health and leave if you have to leave.
Amen.
All right. We'll see you
Mm.
next week. Namaste.
Namaste.